Hundreds of homes are buried under the rubble after a 6.5 magnitude earthquake hit the regency of PD Jaya, located 100 kilometers from the city of Banda Aceh in Indonesia. The search and rescue team have been heavily combing the destruction since dawn, where they are still looking to find more bodies under the mass rubble.
Maybe there will be more fatalities. Those who were injured are being transferred to Barun and PD.
Aceh is no stranger to strong earthquakes. Back in 2004, a 9.2 magnitude quake shook the city, destroying thousands of homes and killing more than 250,000 people. The city is located in what authorities call a red zone area, a particularly sensitive area prone to natural disasters, such as earthquakes, landslides, and flooding. This time around, authorities say they are better prepared. Since the deadly quake of 2004, most buildings and homes have been constructed to overcome powerful tremors. But this morning's disaster showed a different scene.
They were waking up and getting ready to pray when the 4-story building collapsed.
A total of 300 homes are buried under the debris, leaving hundreds of people homeless and without electricity. The Aceh government have declared a state of emergency for the next 14 days in response to this quake. Right now, the search and rescue team are focusing on finding possible survivors under the rubble. But authorities say getting to the scene of destruction is a challenge. Medical teams have been deployed to provide basic necessities such as food and water to the survivors of this devastating earthquake. Sulkina Aluwalia, CCTV, Jakarta.
3 people in Alabama were killed by a suspected tornado as a line of severe storms moved across the South overnight, authorities said. The 3 who died were all in a mobile home in the northeastern Alabama community of Rosalie. Another person in the home was critically injured. There were also a number of other injuries, and it's estimated that 16 to 20 structures in the county have been destroyed. Possible tornadoes were reported across several counties in northern Alabama and southern Tennessee. National Weather Service meteorologist Lauren Nash said. Tornadoes and hail were also reported Tuesday in Louisiana and Mississippi.
A new study suggests one of the deadliest tornado outbreaks in U.S. history was strengthened by smoke from burning farmlands in Central America. On April 27, 2011, some 200 terrifying twisters touched down across the southeast, the most on record in a single day. Damages topped $11 billion and 316 people died. The hardest hit states were Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, which were struck by 15 tornadoes ranked EF4 or higher. There were also 4 powerful EF5 tornadoes, the highest possible tornado ranking, as severe storms raked through these states. According to a study published January 26th in the journal Geophysical Research Letters, researchers now say that air pollution intensified this incredible tornado outbreak. When supercell storms mixed with smoke in the air, the volatile combination boosted the conditions that trigger tornadoes.
Parts of the southern United States recovering and cleaning up after powerful storms last week. 4 children were injured in Alabama when a tornado hit their daycare center. In a nearby town, that same storm killed 3 people. The storm moved through 4 states, spawning tornadoes along the way. Tornadoes are among the most destructive types of storms. These twisters of wind have killed more than 1,000 people in the U.S. over the past 2 decades. A new study shows tornado outbreaks are becoming more frequent.
Joplin, Missouri, May 2011. A tornado 1.5 kilometer wide rips through the city. Winds top 320 kilometers per hour.
You see people just walking around stunned.
Businesses, homes, even a hospital destroyed. 158 people dead. In the end, damage was estimated at nearly $3 billion. Just weeks earlier, Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Worried about the stadium, guys.
65 people were killed in a tornado that carved a path through nearly 130 kilometers. It was part of what was dubbed a super outbreak, one of the worst tornado outbreaks in U.S. history. Over the course of 3 days, the southeastern United States saw 349 separate tornadoes.
I've got to say, I've never seen devastation like this. It is heartbreaking.
A study published this month in the journal Science says these so-called tornado clusters are becoming more common. A cluster is when a storm forms 6 or more tornadoes. 50 years ago, there were 40 outbreaks per year. Last year, there were 80, double the number. The authors of the study don't know why, but say it's a trend. They add it does not appear to be linked to climate change. What we do know is how tornadoes form. They form when hot, humid air, typically from the sea, meets dry, cold air, typically from the poles. The hot air rises and the cold air gathers underneath. That causes thunderclouds to form. The two air masses begin rotating around one another and a funnel appears. When it touches ground, it's officially a tornado. Tornadoes are measured on the enhanced Fujita scale, going from 0 to 5. And EF0 is relatively weak with winds between 105 and 137 kilometers per hour. They cause minimal damage. On the other hand, an EF5 tornado is extremely strong, with winds ranging from 320 to 500 kilometers per hour. These winds are strong enough to pull entire houses off their foundations. While tornadoes can form all over the world, the United States is most prone by far, especially an area known as Tornado Alley in the country's Midwest.
The first Arctic blast of the season sweeping across the country has brought North Dakota and parts of Minnesota under a blizzard warning. Already, some places have been buried in more than a foot of snow. Temperatures are lower than normal across the Great Plains. Even in parts of the South, as cold temperatures head from west to east throughout the week, they'll continue to drop. Clogging roads, causing crashes and forcing emergency crews to assist. Blinding snow blanketed Boulder, Colorado overnight. In Bismarck, North Dakota, snow continues to pile up and winds are unbearable.
A horrific sinkhole tragedy to tell you about. This massive hole swallowing and killing an off-duty sheriff's deputy and injuring 2 others. 69-year-old Dora Nishihara was driving a San Antonio, Texas road late Sunday night when her car went into the hole, trapping her under 12 feet of water. A second car also fell in, injuring that driver and a rescue worker. Officials say that the sinkhole opened after a sewer line apparently ruptured during some heavy rain.
Footage has just emerged showing what is thought to be a meteor falling from the sky in Russia's Siberia. As you can see, this dash cam caught what appears to be a meteorite lighting up the sky. Rescue services say that they've received more than 400 phone calls from eyewitnesses. And this next video shows light flashes above a residential area. The Emergencies Ministry says that there's been no significant damage to infrastructure. Here's what the author of that video told us.
When I walked out of the hospital that you can see in the dashcam footage, I walked towards the car and saw the sky light up. It was very bright. I saw a fireball. About 30 seconds later, I heard a loud explosion.
Okay, let's get more on this story now. RT's Miguel Francis Santiago joins me in the studio. And the first question I'd like to ask you, apart from what happened, was I'm quite curious. Meteor or meteorite? What are we dealing with here?
Well, actually, see, a meteorite is something that falls from the space and touches the Earth, while a meteor is the one that breaks up in the sky without really causing any significant touchdown.
There you go, there's an important distinction.
There you go. You learn something new every day, huh? Well, but this one, you know, they keep on falling, Neil. This is the third one since 2013. So the Chelyabinsk, we had a major one that shattered windows and people had to duck for cover underneath their office tables. that explosion burned up at an altitude of 30 to 50 kilometers. Its fragments crashing onto the earth over a large territory in the Chelyabinsk area, with the more heavy pieces landing around the Lake Chebarkul, which is 78 kilometers west of Chelyabinsk, and the largest piece weighing half a ton. So we can imagine how some of these people at this latest one in eastern Siberia were really fearing for their lives.
A crude oil transmission line was shut down in western North Dakota following a leak that spilled oil into a creek, the state said on Tuesday. The size of Monday's leak and the extent of the spill were not yet known. It occurred as Native Americans, climate activists, and other protesters camped around 200 miles away at the site of the controversial Dakota Access Pipeline project over concerns a leak there could contaminate the water supply. The leak that prompted the shutdown was discovered in a 6-inch pipeline operated by Bell Fourche Pipeline Company, the North Dakota Department of Health said. An undetermined amount of crude oil was spilled, according to the state.
According to new information released by Friends of the Earth, more than 40% of the 167 ships in operation still use treatment technology that is nearly 40 years old. What does this mean for the ocean? Well, the Environmental Protection Agency says that an average cruise ship produces 21,000 gallons of sewage a day. That's calculated using an estimated 3,000 passengers and the crew that goes with them. Industry-wide, that's 1 billion gallons a year, which is a conservative estimate because newer models can carry 8,000 passengers. It's not good news for the environment or the people living near the seaside. Even passengers are not fans.
Yes, it does surprise me because when we came off the cruise ship, we saw the tankers that were being emptied, the sewage was being put into the tankers. That surprises me that they would do that. I mean, I don't swim in the ocean and things like this, but for pollution-wise, I don't think it's a great thing, no. And for the animals, the fish and everything, no.
I didn't really know that. My husband tells me that they do, when it does dump, because he was in the Navy, that it is far enough out that it doesn't affect the shorelines. Other than that, I really don't know.
U.S. Secretary of State has criticized Israel for its settlement activities in the occupied West Bank. John Kerry says that Tel Aviv's expanding settlements undermine the prospects of a two-state solution.
And the fact is that current trends, including violence, settlement activity, demolitions, are imperiling the viability of a two-state solution. And that trend has to be reversed in order to prevent this untenable one-state reality from taking hold. In fact, nearly all of Area C, which comprises 60% of the West Bank, is effectively restricted for any Palestinian development. Much of it claimed for Israeli state land or for settlement councils. But the continued settlement growth raises honest questions about Israel's long-term intentions and will only make separating.
Kerry further criticized some Israeli cabinet ministers for rejecting a two-state solution. A top U.S. diplomat also warned against the consequences of weakening the Palestinian Authority. Kerry further called on Palestinians and Israelis to de-escalate the current situation and show a genuine commitment to peace. Israel's settlements are considered illegal under international law. And author of The Hidden History of Zionism by Ralph Shulman believes that the U.S. is an accomplice in Israeli acts against Palestinians and that Kerry's remarks are nothing but a sign of America's hypocrisy. Let's take a listen.
The Israeli authorities are sustained by continuous arms and financing from the United States, multi-billions of dollars on a continuing basis. The entire arsenal of weaponry that's used to suppress the Palestinian people is provided by Washington, based in Israel. It is a continuing relationship, and it escalates with every day that passes. It is sustained by American hypocrisy. This could be stopped within a minute if the U.S. cut off the funds and cut off the arms. Kerry was quick to say that what had to be done was to support the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority is an instrument of U.S. and Israeli control. It is funded by them. It provides intelligence services for them. It cooperates in the occupation and in the policing of the Palestinian people. It is co-responsible for what the Israeli army is doing to the people of Palestine. So to talk about supporting the authorities to sustain precisely what Israel is doing to the Palestinian people on an ongoing basis, that's what has to be stopped. And only the resistance of the Palestinian people and their support throughout the world can bring that about on
A new poll has found that over 1/3 of Americans are unhappy with the influence of the Israeli regime on U.S. politics. Survey shows an overall drop in support for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his policies. According to the poll, some 50% of respondents who affiliate with the Democratic Party expressed concern over Israeli leverage on U.S. politicians. Republican voters, however, were more sympathetic with Israel in this regard. Now, the poll also shows only 44% of respondents believe that Israel's influence on U.S. politics was at the right level. The poll was conducted by the Brookings Institute with participation of over 1,700 people.
On Tuesday, heavily armed sheriff's deputies stood watch at a Los Angeles area subway station when a threat was reported to an overseas tip line and then sent to the FBI. Mayor Eric Garcetti went into the field to show confidence in security measures at the entrance to the Red Line station near Universal Studios. Some commuters have been subject to bag searches as deputies stood by with rifles and dogs. Information about the potential threat was passed on to the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force from international partners Monday morning. Deidre Fike, assistant director of the FBI's Los Angeles office, said the credibility of the threat was still being investigated, but was enforced because of how specific it was, as well as mentioning the attack was threatened for the next day.
Now a new report by the Washington Post claiming senior Pentagon officials suppressed a study documenting a whopping $125 billion in waste. The fear reportedly was that Congress would use the findings to cut the defense budget. National security correspondent Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon there for more on this. What did you find out, Jennifer?
Well, Bill, the savings found in the report would represent a quarter of the defense budget, enough to pay for 50 Army brigades or 10 aircraft carrier strike groups. The report, created by the Defense Business Board, an independent group of business executives appointed by the Defense Secretary, came up with these startling findings. For instance, 500,000 back office DoD personnel are simply assigned to logistics, larger than the entire UPS fleet. Overall, there are more than 1 million contractors, civilian and uniformed personnel, to fill back-office jobs far from the front lines. That workforce supports 1.3 million troops on active duty, the fewest since 1940, according to the Washington Post. The Pentagon is pushing back hard on this explosive expose in the Post today. Pentagon Press Secretary Peter Cook released a statement, quote, "While well-intentioned, the report had limited value because it didn't take into account many of DoD's ongoing efficiency initiatives in the same areas and lacked specific actionable recommendations appropriate to the department." The Post alleges the 77-page report was removed from the Pentagon's website, but that is not true. According to senior defense officials, we found the report is still on the Pentagon's website, but we can't be certain that it was removed at one point. Officials here are also pushing back on suggestions that the Deputy Defense Secretary Bob Work wanted the report squashed. When it was released in January 2015, it was reported on by defense reporters. It's safe to say, Bill, however, that the next administration will be taking another look at these explosive findings.
Well, Jennifer, thank you. Jennifer Griffin from the Pentagon on that.